Before we start, does everyone get their quiz? You didn't get your quiz. Oh, absolutely. No studying required, but testing. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now?
Again, it's a very important question.
Okay, welcome. Glad everyone made it from the cold there. So, and Happy New Year. We haven't seen many of you since last year, so it's kind of nice. I keep saying that every month anyway, so don't. Yeah, no, really good to see you. So Linda and I worked for a little bit over the winter, over the holidays, to put together a presentation on DNA. So that's what we'll get into in a few minutes. We'll just give you some of the updates that's been going on with the association for now. So one reminder, we're basically recording this. We put it up on our YouTube channel. How many see the YouTube channel videos? 1, 2, 3. Okay, the ones that are in it. Yeah. So, anyway, it's useful. We have them all the way back for, at least 5 years probably. So if you're ever looking for a topic, they're there. So easy to look with YouTube. I go to YouTube's for everything. So very useful thing. Anyway, we're recording. The society, some of you I think might be new. We've been around 50 years. There's 34 branches in Ontario. We do things like transcribing headstones at cemeteries and scanning yearbooks and transcribing books and, that have names and things like that. So it's, but we've been trying to basically preserve history, the family history. So that's sort of our mandate. Some of the perks, I'll get to that in a minute. That's our website for the society. And in there is all the different branches and all the members only types sites and things. But some of the perks of being there, MyHeritage. How many have a MyHeritage account? A few, okay. This one's not the full one. It's if you're looking for a particular name, for $10 you can go in and search particular names and things like that, but you can't build a tree from it. That's the only downside of it. But it's for that price, it's pretty worthwhile, especially if you're locating people. The other thing is that we have on DNA, which is today's topic, is a series of webinars, 18 hours of videos on DNA. So if you got a couple of weekends, sit down and look at all the information on DNA, and it's always there to relook at it. So it's good. But I believe those are free. Those are you can.
For members.
For
members.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. There we go. Forgot about that. And the biggest thing I think that's coming up in London in June is the conference. If you just wanted to go and shop for books and for other things related to genealogy, well worth driving up on a Saturday and take a truck. Yeah. Or, if you want to sit on sessions and things like that, I think I signed up, it was $130 for the weekend. And I happen to have a sister who lives there, so I get free boarding. But it's, I think, the highlight of the year going to the conferences. So I really recommend it. And you don't have to be a member. You can sign up and or just go to the marketplace.
And there's a lot of discounts at the marketplace, like DNA kits.
Yeah.
That's where we all go buy our DNA kits because they have door crasher sales there.
Yeah.
So it's worth a drive just to go get 10 kits.
Yep, to give to your uncles and aunts and make sure that everyone gets their test done. Anyway, that's coming up June 21st. These are our two websites and our Facebook. So, how many are on the Facebook? You follow that? You find out when Deborah's putting in her flooring, and you find.
Do not. Not on that one.
No, okay.
No. I don't post it to the Essex branch.
I never know where I see things. But anyway, we set it up for you to network basically with each other, to find out cousins and ask questions. And I believe we try to respond to questions that are asked there. So, so it seems to be working. Let's see. Things that are going on the members only page. Cemeteries. Where's Pat? Pat is our cemetery person. Pat, we just did what, say 1,700 names, headstones last summer, and you've gone through, you've typed up half of them already. So,
Well, almost half.
almost half. And she's got pictures of them and everything else. And she just posted the St. Thomas from last year. Heavenly Rest, at Heavenly Rest. So if you ever want to do something on a Tuesday morning in the summertime, show up at Heavenly Rest and you'll find Pat there with her cleaning headstones and taking pictures and then going home to transcribe them. But if you want to go and help clean the headstones and whatnot, you got to feed the mosquitoes sometime, you know, so you must do it there. So it's kind of a nice thing to do. So. The other things we have are yearbooks. We're up to as of today, 452 yearbooks have been scanned and have been made searchable and everything else. And we put maybe only a third are on the members only at the moment because we only want to post things that are older than 50 years old. So, but the nice thing is they become searchable and you can look for a family name. I happened to have a grade school teacher contact me from British Columbia. Within seconds, I had all his high school pictures back to him. And he was kind of, oh, that's kind of neat. So those are things we can do with them. But these are all some of the ones that we've done recently. And today we did more Brennan. We did a lot. We went down to heirs. We've done a lot of the Harrow ones now. We picked up more to do the Harrow, and we went to Essex as well. We started scanning the Essex district. So if you have yearbooks, bring them in. We'll scan them. So, and we'll give you back a digital copy so that you'll have. Yes.
You're just showing up to 62 for Leamington? I know you've got.
These are new ones. These are new
those
additions.
are just the new ones?
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, we have, like I say, we've got 452 books that have been done. So, plus we've been doing other things like directories, and we've been doing 1863 diaries from lawyers in Windsor. And so we're not just doing that; we're doing a lot of other things as well. So, anybody like scanning, come and join us. Upcoming things. So next in March, we've got the Italian Genealogical Society is going to come and give us a talk, tell us what they're doing. So that's kind of exciting, I think. I've been to a talk on the Italian genealogy in Detroit, and they did a fantastic job on it. So it's it's kind of a unique way to research, I think. April we haven't got finalized yet, but we're working on that. And then in May we finalized the French Genealogy Society, which is on College and Prince Road. They're there on Tuesdays from 10 to 8, I believe. If you've never been there and you've got French ancestors in the area, well worth going. But they're going to come and give us a talk. Then in June, we're going to the Burton Collection. We were there in 2012, and we're going to go back, and the head of the Burton Collection is going to give us a tour of it, and also talk to us about the Detroit Society of Genealogical Research, which is basically associated with them. And we've got a few people that are members of that group. And if you have any ancestors in Detroit, it's a good group to go to. They have a talk once a month, and they have also a DNA workshop every I think it's every month now. They have a DNA workshop as well. As does Chatham. Chatham has a DNA workshop every month as well. So if you're into DNA at all. So those are things that are happening. Today we're just going to talk about DNA. And we're hoping this is going to be, we really want you to stop us and ask questions. Like, we aren't quite sure what people would like to know, so we kind of put together a basic one, and hopefully we'll open it up to questions. And we also, as we go through, you can answer some of the questions that I put there, and I'll put up the answers later on today as well. So Linda's going to take up. Okay. It's good. I'll take up.
You can rest for a minute. Just a minute. We've got to get the PowerPoint. Whoops.
You know, if you guys pay more, we probably get professionals.
I know, you get what you pay for.
And how does this work again?
Forward and backwards.
That's forward. What's that? Oh, that's
touch.
okay.
Well, that's the pointer. if you
The
wanna
pointer,
actually
okay.
circle something up there. The pointer.
Okay, here we go. So we're going to talk about DNA and how it can help us in our genealogy research. So first of all, we're going to look at the types of tests that you can take. The Y test is looking at the Y chromosome, which is passed from the father to the son only. It traces your paternal line. Only males have this chromosome, so women cannot take this test. There are various levels you can take for the test based on how many markers you want to have them look at. So there's a 12 marker test, which I would not recommend anybody do that one because you become matched with everybody practically in the world. It's just way too undetailed. Whereas the 111 marker, which would be a good one to take, it's very expensive. So something in between 25, 37, I think, David, you were
67.
recommended the 67. It's not quite as expensive, but I'll show you the prices later. Then there's the mtDNA, which is the mitochondrial chromosome, and that's passed from the mother to all her children. And it traces the maternal line. Anybody can take that test. Then there's the atDNA, which is the autosomal test. It's looking at the 22 chromosomes that you receive from both of your parents. So it's tracing your paternal and your maternal lines. Anybody can take that test. And then there's the xDNA, which we'll talk about later. Okay, this slide is a picture of the 23 chromosomes that we all have. Chromosomes 1 through 22 are passed from both parents to all children, but each child receives different sections of each chromosome because of random recombination. The 23rd chromosome is the sex chromosome, the X you receive from your mother, and if you are a male, you will also receive your father's Y chromosome. And the reason they are different sizes is those are the actual sizes of the chromosome. Some are longer and some are shorter. And the longest ones have the shortest number. Okay, this diagram shows you just basically what we've already talked about. The blue line shows you what the YDNA, how it's passed. So you get the YDNA from your father, he gets it from his father, which is your grandfather, and he gets it from his father, which is your great-grandfather. The red denotes the chromosome that you get from your mother for the mtDNA test. So you get it from your mother, she gets it from her mother, and she gets it from her mother. So it's just strictly those people that are tested. The orange basically is everybody. So you get orange from everybody. So now what companies? Ancestry is the largest, and they offer just the autosomal test. And it is usually the cheapest test. I was just checking, and the Valentine's sale has it on for $59 US right now. You get ethnicity, you get matches from both paternal and maternal lines. You can download your results to enter into other companies' databases. They do not accept other companies' test results. So if you take your test somewhere else, you cannot enter it into Ancestry. Family Tree DNA is the company that really offers the most variety in tests. They have the Y test. The 111 marker test right now is $359 US. The 67 markers is 268. The 37 markers is 169. So it's not a cheap test. So you'd have to really know why you're taking the test, whether or not you need to take that one or not. They also have a thing called the Big Y. They now have a Big Y 700, and it's on sale for $649 US.
Sure.
And it's,
Yeah.
it's intended only for the most advanced people who are researching the DNA. Their mtDNA, the mitochondrial, they have two tests. One of them is the smallest one. It's $89. It examines 2 regions of your mitochondrial DNA. The full sequence mitochondrial is a little more expensive, $199, and it examines all regions of your mitochondrial DNA. And the other test, the autosomal test that they have is called Family Finder, and they have a Valentine's Day sale on for that test, again for $59 US. It gives you ethnicity and as well as the matches. MyHeritage only does the autosomal DNA test. Valentine's Day sale again is $59, so they're all pretty well the same. And you can download to their site and get free matches with them. I think there used to be a small charge for that, like $10 or something, but I don't think it's there anymore. I'm not 100% sure though. 23andMe is the, again, another autosomal test, but you can also ask for a history part to it. And their Valentine's Day special, which gives you the health as well as the autosomal test, is $249. But this is a test that looks to see if you have any inherited conditions like macular degeneration, lung or liver disease, cystic fibrosis, breast cancer, Alzheimer's. There's many different things that you can learn through that test, health-wise. And living DNA, they have what they call a 3-in-1 DNA test. I'm really not familiar with it. David might have more information, but it's $79. The problem with them is I don't think they had matches at first. They say
still
on their,
don't.
they say that they do, but
They still don't.
I don't trust that, no. So the thing about DNA, you have to decide why do you want to take a DNA test? And based on your reason will be, that's how you would determine what company you can use. So if your primary aim is to trace either your father's or your mother's line, then the YDNA or the mtDNA testing is the one for you, and Family Tree is the best one to go for that. My husband wanted to do this test because he wanted to find out more about his surname line, so he has a specific reason for that, and that's why he took that test. But if your primary aim is to get a health profile, and if you're,
Deborah had a question?
oh, sorry.
I don't have a question. Robert did his YDNA because we were matching another honor in Ireland and another honor in Australia. And we had a match with the 3 of them.
Yes, I mean, we wanted to know where the Urquharts came from. And because we were sort of at a brick wall with my husband's 5 times great-grandfather, we just didn't know where he came from. We assumed Scotland, but that's a big assumption, really. So that's why he took the YDNS, hoping to match with other Urquharts. And I'll show you the results later. So if your primary aim is to connect with living relatives, you should go with the biggest database for that, and that's currently Ancestry. It's also the cheapest one. But if you're really serious about finding living relatives, it's best to go to more than one company, because each company is only comparing your DNA with the DNA that's in their database. So if you just go to Ancestry, you're just being compared to that. Whereas if you also tested with Family Tree or MyHeritage, and you don't really have to test them, you just have to send in your raw data, but they will test your DNA against their database, so you just have a lot more people to get a hold of. And if your primary aim is to get strictly ethnicity, then again, you can go anywhere. Any of them do ethnicity. Again, Ancestry is probably the cheapest. And now I'm going to pass this on to David. I digress.
So one thing the other thing you can do with your DNA test, your autosomal, is download it from whatever company you go with and upload it to Jetmatch. And it's a growing site of places where people put their DNA raw data to match up with additional people from other sites. So it's just it's growing, and hopefully it'll get bigger. I think we're thinking of maybe in October have a session just on Jetmatch. So we're just dabbling with that. Anyway, back to the slides. So if you're looking at just your DNA, your YDNA, as looking for Linda.
Here I am.
Yeah. And which one's the late?
The red one.
Okay. So yeah, so with YDNA, you're just going to go through your father. So it helps determine, are you related to that person in Australia? In my case, I found the opposite. I found about 250 years ago, I think my ancestors changed their name. They were probably running from the law, changed their name, skipped the country, and everything else. So it kind of proved that, or showed that, hey, I'm not related to anybody else in that with that last family name. So it's maybe another way of deciding, hey, I should look at a different name in these DNA matches. It might not be just my last name. So I keep that in mind as well. So YDNA. So here's your one ancestor, and this is the quiz. If you look at your quiz, this is so your Y, the male's going to inherit the Y from the father, and they're going to pass it down to that son, and then they're going to pass it down to that person there. And then the same here, but this is a female. She doesn't get a Y from the father.
That
So
square boxes are males.
yeah, so the female in this, there's no YDNA passed along that line of the family. So when you're looking for your ancestors or trying to decide who to test for YDNA, going through that kind of analysis is kind of important. And I'll show you another way to look at it as well later. But so that's one nice, if you're looking for YDNA, like Deborah was talking about, you could map it out. And that's what Cindy's done in the back. She's mapped out who to test for YDNA. So why you're not going to waste your money on somebody in that branch to ask them to do a YDNA test because they don't have any. So the mtDNA, this is the opposite. This is the female. So you go through just your mother's mothers, and that is useful if you're. The problem with the mtDNA, it doesn't degrade over time. So you could be matched up with somebody, but it might be 10,000 years ago that you had a common ancestor. That's the problem. And on the female side, everyone changes their name when they used to. And so it gets very difficult to determine. But if you do have a match, you can say, hey, somewhere in the last 10,000 years, we've got a common ancestor. So it may not help you too much.
So the mtDNA
Yep.
you get from your mother,
Correct.
and she could give to both sons and daughters.
Yes, correct.
So my father received mtDNA from his mother,
That's correct.
but my father's not going to pass any of that on to me.
Correct.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
you only get it from your mother, so that's. But it makes it easy to follow that chain and try to decide. But the problem is, you could be 10,000 years ago that you were common, but it may help a little bit. But anyway, it's just another tool in that. I probably wouldn't recommend that unless you were just really curious.
So at conference a couple years ago, I thought I wanted to test my grandmother. I was just getting into this, and my grandmother's 95 years old. So I thought, oh, I better grab her mitochondrial DNA while she's still here. So I went to the booth, right straight to the source, and I was talking to them, and the lady said, why do you want to buy a kit? And I'm like, well, I'm a genealogist, I'm doing my, but she said, but why do you want it? Why do you want this kit in particular? Long story short, she basically said that if I'm doing just general genealogy, that kit would not be of value to me, and it was quite a bit more money than the other kits were. So she actually talked me out of it, and I actually ended up going and getting autosomal as opposed to, she was saying that if you have like Native American, if you have something substantial that you're trying to authenticate, that would be a good way to go. But just for the general average person, she said, no, it's not worth your money. Go this way instead. So
So translating it to physical traits, hair color, eye color, and so on. I wouldn't have anything from my dad's mother's side.
Oh, you might have the autosomal DNA.
I know, right,
Okay.
right.
As I get further along, I'll show you some of the ways to do exactly what you're talking about. So just give me a second here. I'm going to go through so here's the MT, looking at it this way. So the mother gives the MT to the son and the two daughters. The daughter gives it to the daughter and gives it to the daughter and so again, I think that's one of the questions as well is going down who in that family tree there has the MT DNA at the very end. So that's how you check it. So where in this case, nobody has it at the bottom because it only went to the male, they don't pass it on. Okay. So here's another way of looking at autosomal DNA. This is where you're looking at all your cousins. How many have done fan trees? Well, I know you print them. Yeah, if you want your family tree printed, we have a person back in Jetmatch. I should do something there. Okay, so this is where Linda was saying, you get the AT-DNA from all of your ancestors. But wait a minute, how come I have some blank spots up here? Anybody? Why is there blank? How come I'm not getting any AT-DNA from that person?
When you go back far enough, you only get 50% of both parents. So grandparents, you only get a quarter from each of them. So as you go back, certain parts of your family DNA will not show up in you, but they may show up in your sister or your brother.
And it's a way they, even you get 50, but it also, as Linda was mentioning, you have different combinations as well.
Yeah.
So your sister may have it, and yet you don't. That's question number 5, by the way. Okay. So here's the recombination. So you've got your chromosomes from your mother and father. They recombinate over here. They basically shuffle the deck on you, and your sister or brother are going to get a different shuffle than you get. So that maybe helps as well. So going back, so down the road, those things got shuffled, and none of their stuff got translated down to you.
So my son had his DNA tested, and according to his DNA testing, he doesn't have any Italian in him, and my dad was Italian. Is that possible?
So
Is your dad
full
like
Italian?
like a couple hundred years in Italy? Was the family there? There was a lot of migration.
We're related to Pope Giacomo Rivera.
Okay.
That's the 15th and 16th century.
Sounds like he's been there a while.
But it didn't show in my son's at all.
Doesn't show up any Italian. And it could, which company did you test with?
I think he went with
Ancestry?
Ancestry.
Yeah, so that's fairly big. I wouldn't say they have a small database in Italy, but they may have. And that could be part of the problem is they don't have enough to but even in the US, there'd be a lot of Italian immigrants as well to test with. So there should be some
It
matches.
showed my mother's side. It showed the Belgium and the French and the Indian, but it didn't show my dad's side at all.
Because they should have got, like Deborah said, should have got 50% of the DNA from your dad.
That's what I'm,
And so there should have been something there.
something.
Yeah.
25. So
You
you would have got 25%.
Yeah, he was a foreigner, but he didn't get
Oh,
any.
is this the grandparents? No.
Yeah.
No, my dad.
His
My
dad
dad.
and her son.
Oh, okay,
So
oh,
that-
okay, so it is a quarter, it'd be less than that.
Yeah, but they saying he doesn't have any
So,
Italian.
yeah, that'd be
Which
tough.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because that's you.
Some strange things like that do happen every so often,
Yeah.
where you get more of your DNA from the other side of the family.
Yeah, more of it.
It's not a specific 50%.
Right.
You might get 40 from one and 60 from another. And then when you go back, if you've got 40% from the side that has the Italian, maybe only 10% is the Italian, and the other 30% are from the other grandparent.
And you can go on and update too, because they keep.
Yeah,
Yeah, they'll keep
Right.
updating it.
That's
With my
right.
husband, it showed he was Ashkenazi Jew, like a 0.1%, which we've got proof of that in the family tree. That's now disappeared, now that they've redone everything, and they now say he's from Sardinia.
As
So,
the-
That part confuses me.
As the
They've
pool
done your
grows, they
DNA.
have more people to match up
To
with,
match up,
and
yeah.
it gets clear. So they're up to probably, last number I heard, they had 12 million people that they had on their database. So it's probably bigger than that now with all the holidays that just
And
happened.
they all
So-
use different algorithms, so it's like Deborah's saying, it's not cut and dry, it's not just this is this. It's a comparison with different databases that are always fluid and always changing, so, yeah, you'll have that one time and you go back the next time it won't be there, and then she'll go back again, and it will be there, because they retested more people and reshuffled the database.
So if no Italians got tested.
Then, yeah,
then
that-
it shows up.
But that's highly unlikely, I think.
Less.
But,
Can I just ask a question? Is your husband been tested as well? Like the father, your son's father?
No,
No contact.
Oh, okay, because I was gonna say, does he have a match with the father?
he has a match on my mother's side. And the French, my
Does he have any matches with your
French
father's
Indian
side?
is with the Droulards, he's
Yeah.
French Indian. And my mother was part Belgian, and that shows. And my grandfather was from France.
I'm not talking about the ethnicity though, I'm just asking your DNA matches. Are there any from your father's line? Or his father's line?
No, no.
That's what she says it was not.
You're sure that's his father?
I'm positive.
You would know.
I can tell
You
you
would
what
know.
movie you're watching at the time.
Because you do get 50%, like we've had my son done, my husband's been done, I've been done. And he has exactly 50% of my centimorgans and 50% of my husband's, exactly.
Yeah.
It is pretty exact. You don't get 40, 60, it's pretty exact.
But he's not getting any Italian
But-
from me.
Yeah.
Now I'm half Italian, and he's not getting that.
So you could jump back another generation, and you're saying you know who your son's father is, but possibly the father's, up here there was something
Like uncles or anything.
going on
Maybe the
too.
grandfather isn't really his grandfather.
Well, that's my daughter-in-law saying, your mother was fooling around.
Anyway, we're gonna get into that. We're gonna get into that. Linda's gonna talk about her.
Yeah, I got some.
She got some scuttlebutt. Yes.
As I explained to Linda earlier tonight, through the Ancestry DNA, and they suggest matches, and when I viewed theirs, and this is a person that, according to Ancestry, is high confidence second cousin. You know, and when I look at her tree and she looks at my tree, there's nobody's the same. You know, nobody's the same.
Hmm.
You know, so as
It
far
could
as
be farther
common
back.
ancestors, you know.
Yeah.
So,
I have a similar one. For the last year, we've been trying to find out how this second cousin and I are related, but
can you go back a slide for me?
Yep.
It's the one where at the, might be another one back.
The recombination.
The recombination, that's the one, yes, thank you.
that was forward.
That was forward, yeah.
Okay. The pattern of that recombination, this is how I'm assessing that Ancestry had matched us, is that the pattern of recombination is similar enough for them to say that we're a match.
Mainly,
Is that possible?
it's mainly on the amount of centimorgans of chromosomes that you match. So and you may have 12 different chromosomes, and you match in different spots, but they're saying the total amount is this. But on one chromosome, you match maybe a little bit more. But that's sort of what you're looking at when you're looking at
So let
matches.
say maybe 10 generations up the tree.
Yeah.
If we do have common ancestors, could that recombination eventually be similar so many generations down for them to say, well, you know, it's awesome, but it's a match.
The ancestry, if we just send it
Right.
it's by a kid and send it.
I think that would be diluted that far back. If I understand what you're saying. Yeah, let me, I'll have to talk about that. I'm not quite clear exactly what you're asking, so, but I'll follow up with it.
Thank you.
So Linda, you threw this in?
Yeah, I like colors, okay, so what this shows is that So everybody has 8 great grandparents. So they're all those different colors. Then their children, you see how they have half of the purple and half of the black, I guess. Then their children get half of the of purple and half of the, or not a half, a quarter of each. So it's, now you see the mother and the father, they have 4 different colors, and their children now have 8 different colors.
Let's use this, okay, we have this Italian grandparent,
Okay,
and they give it to the mother, so then it gives it to the son, the grandson. So maybe,
Yeah, but they're saying he has no Italian.
yeah. but
was his father born in Italy?
My father was, yes.
Okay, so his grandfather,
Yes, right. So
he should have some.
you would
Yeah,
think
he
that.
should.
Yeah.
It says he does.
I don't trust the ethnicity
Yeah,
completely,
that's-
really.
I hope not.
No,
So it's just-
I really
Now
don't.
I said my daughter-in-law is now saying, well, your mother must be fooling around.
Yeah.
That's when you get other people tested,
Yeah,
like they're suggesting,
exactly.
you know, you start testing other people
Yeah.
to see if you can
I
kind
mean,
of narrow down
so
what's.
That's
going on.
why
No,
I
if my
trust the
daughter had
DNA,
done-
but I trust the DNA. If
Yeah.
it says there's so many centimorgans that you share with this person, then I trust that.
Yeah.
But ethnicity is a totally different
change.
ballgame, and we didn't really even prepare anything for
So if my
ethnicity.
daughter had it done, would she have the same results as my
Nope.
son? Or
No,
different
absolutely
results
not.
altogether?
But it might show up Italian. So
Yeah,
that'd be worth trying.
be worth trying, yeah. Sorry.
No?
You should have step here.
Yeah.
So we're talking about centimorgans, CM, and basically, so if the two brother and sister, they're gonna come up with probably that many common centimorgans of a match. And they may be different, all these different chromosomes and different segments of them that they match on, but when you add them all together, they should be around 2,500 centimorgans. So that tells you that they'd be full sister and full brother, as opposed to a half uncle, half type thing. So they're prepared. So this is how the companies decide when they're guessing whether you're a first cousin, second cousin, or not. As to how many of these chromosomes do you have that match each other, or in total? They add up all the chromosomes, and that's where you come. So when you're looking at fourth cousins, you don't really have a lot of DNA matches in there. By the way, they're going to be shown. We have the slides available somewhere. Are we going to be posting the slides?
Oh, we can. Yeah.
We were going to do that, I think.
Yeah, we're gonna post the
We'll post
presentation.
it on the website, so you can download it. So that's what you're getting back from all these companies, is really, they're looking at this number and trying to decide, are you a first cousin or a second cousin twice removed, or something like
And
that.
they actually use a range, which
Yeah,
is another
which we'll
slide coming
show
up.
you that, so. But that's, so down here, it gets really iffy when you get to fourth cousins. I have a fifth cousin, in Kingsville, and I had to lower the, sensitivity of the program to say, oh yeah, we've got 7 centimorgans of a match, but they weren't showing up until I adjusted the sensitivity of it, so here's, I believe this is autosomal.
X, I think that's the
Is
X.
this the X? Yeah, it's missing. There's an X. Sorry about the X down here. Sorry. So we went from Y to mitochondrial to autosomal, now to the X chromosome. And I think this is really important too. Family tree DNA will say you have an X match. I don't believe any of the other ones, any other companies, maybe not even DNA, living DNA does, but family tree DNA will say you have an X match, which is kind of nice to know, because then you can say, well, if we have an X match, then we're not related in this part of the tree, or further up here, I'm not related to that family tree. So it helps you narrow down, well, where do we match, like your cousin? You can use that to try to knock off branches of, let's not bother looking in that area. So with an X, you can say, hey, I got an X from my father, I'm a female, I got an X from my father and mother, he only got it from an X from his father, or from the mother, and it goes back and back. So, and I'll show you another slide again on how to use that to narrow down who to search when you're trying to find that second cousin. How do you match with them? Here's the X chromosome, the X DNA, and again, family tree DNA is the only one that I know of that really tells you that, yeah, you have a match of an X DNA with that particular person, which I've been using to knock off who not to look at. So this is from the male side. So the male gets a Y DNA from the father and the X is from the mother. So you can say, hey, if we have an X match, I don't have to worry about my father's side of the family. I can now concentrate on my mother's side when I'm trying to find out if where we're related or who we're not related to. So that again helps in as a tool for analyzing. So that's the X, which you only get from family tree DNA. Okay, so we threw this in just to say you can look at these 4 tests, and if you well, let's ask the question: has everyone done a DNA test? No.
I didn't agree.
Oh, DNA test. Have you done a DNA test?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, the only thing sometimes you might find surprises. Like I find that when I did the Y, I'm kind of now realizing, yeah, someone's changed their name for some reason. So, 250 years ago, that I'm not related to anybody else with the same last name. So, and there's some people that you find out, like this cousin in New York, that we've tried to find out how we're related to. I'm pretty sure someone's fooled around, and there's, so we're related DNA-wise, as Linda said, but we can't figure out for the life of us how we're related. We're like second or third cousins. So those are things you have to watch when you're getting your DNA test. But I think most of you in the room maybe already have that. So here's what I like to do with these fan charts that you get printed out. Is using it. So on my fan chart, I have all the ancestors are on there. But when I'm researching, I say, okay, if we're related by Y, I can narrow it down to that line of the family. If we're related with the MT, I can say, hey, it's got to be somewhere along in that line. If I have my X chromosome, it can only be somewhere there that we're matched. So I use my fan chart to try to help me decide where could we be related, where should I start my research. So I think if you, some of these programs now do printing out by fan charts, and it might be useful. That's the female line they have no YDNA, they have the mitochondrial, and they have the X's, and then they have all of the ATDNA as well. But these are all the X's that they're going to be related to. Notice it's in the father's line as well. So again, if the female has a match in the X, it helps you decide where to look. So a reason to do your genealogy and get all your charts out, like Cindy did in the back, trying to determine who to look at. This one's more of again, just your close, sorry.
Siblings at the top there. Cluster 1.
Yes. So these are the averages again. So if you're going to be matched to a half. So it's just a bit more detail from that first slide. It tells you the ranges. So sometimes your second cousin could be a second cousin once removed or something, depending on this range. There's sometimes a big gap in between there. So the companies are trying to guess just how much, whether that's a second cousin or second cousin once removed. So it's so don't just concentrate on, yeah, they said it's a second cousin. It could be someone out around there. So this is another chart, and this is by Vettinger, which we've been using a lot of from his book. Yeah, we used one of his workbooks to do a lot of these slides. Anyway, in there is this, so here's yourself and the centimorgans. So here's 0 to 124, they're a fourth cousin, and the common ancestor would be your third great uncle or third great aunt. So it's a nice chart to use when you're analyzing your ancestry results to say, hey, we've got a little bit of centimorgans. Where might we be related? So you're going to go back 3 generations or so 4 generations to say, yeah, we're probably related there. And that helps you focus your research in that area. Okay, so that's the, what I like about this chart. Again, it gives you another way to look at it on who to analyze. And again, that's going to be available on the website. And I'm leaving this over to Linda. I'll say goodbye.
Okay, this is my son's family tree. Let me just see here. I don't want to miss anything, so I'm gonna check my notes. Okay. So with family tree, he did the Y test because again, we're looking for those Urquharts, those elusive Urquharts. It gives you your haplogroup, which is sort of like your code. It's your type. He's an I and he's an M253. I is the important part of that. The M253 just means M is the family tree maker did the test, and 253 is where his DNA starts to change. So that's the only way I can describe it. There's way better ways that people that know what they're doing can describe it, but that's how I do it. If he had taken the MT test, he would have had an MT haplogroup as well, but he didn't take that test. So with, okay, we did put his family tree up there, and by family tree, it's just basically his parents, their grandparents. It's not like all the siblings and all the cousins. It's just a straight tree. You can get matches, which is I think that the only things you're going to really be wanting to look at are the matches, the My Origins, and the Ancient Origins. The My Origins is basically the ethnicity. That's going to tell you British Isles, Italian, French, what percentages, same as Ancestry. The Ancient Origins is something way further back. So you're either a hunter-gatherer or a farmer or a Middle Age invader, which Chuck has part of that in him, so he likes that. That's the family, that's all the family finder. So that's the autosomal. With the YDNA, you also get matches. And the origins are, and all of these things are just quite a bit different than the autosomal. If you really get into it, there's SNP maps and haplotree SNPs and these things. I really don't understand them at all, so you need to go further to another class. So I did decide to show you the matches. I took out the person's name that submitted it for privacy issues. So the genetic distance he has, this is the 111 test. So a genetic distance of 4 is still pretty good. It's still pretty close. In fact, this Robert Jeffrey Urquhart is a known cousin. We know he is our cousin. And we know he's related to James Urquhart, who is the ancestor that Chuck is related to. The other people all had different names. None of them had any name of Urquhart. They had, you can't see some of these names, but we had 2 or 3 McWethy, which doesn't really sound like Urquhart, and a few McLeods. So we really don't know. With this information, because we didn't have any Urquharts, Chuck joined a surname group, and if they have a surname group of your surname, you should join it. Doesn't cost anything. So he joined the Urquhart group, and there was 1,000 or more Urquharts in this group. 5 of them have the same haplogroup as Chuck. They're I M253 or I something else. Everybody else is different, and but they're all the same. They're R's with a certain SNP there. So that basically has told us that there had to have been some kind of non-paternity event, which meant that we, the Urquhart line that Chuck is from and my husband is from, originally they were not Urquharts. There's some other name. It could be an adoption. It could be way
Or the
back.
maternal side.
It's all paternal, yeah, this is the Y.
Right, but what if they took their mother's last name?
Well, this
Like, I've run
happens, I
into
mean,
that.
with,
Yeah.
for purposes of getting the wife's property,
Right.
because the woman couldn't inherit property back in those days. Sometimes if the man that they're marrying doesn't have the same amount of property that she could be entitled to, because there's no other sons in that family, he'll change his name to her name in order to get the property. So it could be something like that. It could be hanky-panky. I mean, we just don't know. We just don't know. So that was disappointing because we really were hoping to find the Urquharts there. Okay, so this is his family finder matches, and
Yep.
which is the autosomal. So this is my husband. I've lost it. There it is. This is my husband. So he shares 3,384 centimorgans with his son Chuck. This is me, and Chuck has 3,383. So my husband is all proud that his son has one more centimorgan than his mother. So, but you can see the X match. So obviously it's the maternal line. Then I had my brother test for the Y again because we were looking for Langs. Again, we weren't successful in finding anybody there, but he does match with Chuck. He's got 1,761, which says he's either a half brother, a grandfather, a grandson, an uncle, or a nephew. Well, he is his uncle because he's my brother. And the X match shows there. So if you didn't know who this was, you would at least know that it came from the mother's side. But we did have two that were defined as second to fourth cousin. They both had a tree. I must say, if you're going to do your DNA and you do want to help in your genealogical research, please put your tree up there. Please don't make it private. I've had so many matches where the tree is private or the tree just isn't there. There's no way of me doing any kind of investigation as to how I might be related to this person because there's nothing to look at. They do have, so that little tree there, you could, if it's colored like that and not grayed out, then you know they have a tree. If you want to send them a message, you could send them a message. If you want to make a note, I always put it in the note whether or not I sent them a message and what their response was, because you will forget. I mean, you get constantly, every day you get new matches, and if you're looking at them, you know, if you don't keep track, that's an easy way to keep track. But with those two Lozons, I was able to locate that they had an ancestor named Lucy Yacht, and Yacht is my husband's grandmother's maiden name. So we were able to find out that Lucy Yacht is the sister of Chuck's 3 times great grandfather, and is therefore, Lucy Yacht is Chuck's 3 times great aunt, great grandaunt. We did not have any information about Lucy, who she married, what children she had. We now have all that information because of DNA and the match. So we were happy with that. I wanted to show you my ancestry results. No, this is the chart. This is, again, another one of those charts. I'll get back to this when I show you the next slide. So this is my ancestry DNA results, and I had first cousin results and matches with D.P. Gray and Lynn Fry. I know these two women. They are both cousins of mine. Lynn is the daughter of my mother's sister, and D.P. Gray is the daughter of my mother's other sister. But this was surprising. Who is this? There was a picture there. I just didn't put it in for privacy's sake. And there was a name. The name looked very familiar. I knew that name, and I knew it was in my tree. 699 centimorgans. across 41 segments. So if you go back to that other 649 fits into this group, which is first cousin, or these other things, which didn't make a lot of sense. I can tell you that after. So I thought, well, okay, I'll click on the view the match. Again, I got a little bit more information. I've got his ethnicity, this person's ethnicity. But what I wanted to tell you was the person put on, the picture that they put in here was their actual picture from Facebook. Okay, so that, I wouldn't recommend doing that. The name they put in here was this name that I was familiar with. They had a very tiny tree, and the surname of the males in this person's tree was not the same as the surname he wrote up here. So I can only guess, I have no idea, but he's using a surname that's not his father's name. So I'm assuming that maybe he's adopted, and maybe he knows that that's his adopted name that was put on his birth certificate. What really got me was, because I saw the name of his parents in his tree, I knew somebody by that surname. So I looked at the picture a little more closely. I went onto the person that I know, onto that person's Facebook. I haven't seen him since high school. And there was the picture of the person that I know. I went to high school with this young person. He's not young anymore, he's my age, but so I know who he is. I just don't know how we're related. I've written him, I have sent him, like you can send a message. I've sent him a message, I've sent him something on Facebook. I haven't received anything back. He hasn't been on Ancestry since May of 2018. So it may be that he's died. I don't know. But he hasn't responded. So I don't know how we're related. I have some guesses, and I have 2 cousins that are working on that as well. So the thing is, if you're going to do your DNA, that you could have a surprise. You just never know.
Yeah.
But what I'd like to say is that, remember, DNA does not lie, but people do. And most of you will not find unexpected results, but many of you will find new cousins who will help you fill in the empty spaces in your family tree. And that's it. So let's do more questions. Dave, come on. You gotta come up here. I'm gonna help you. Yes,
I noticed in your husband's, you had a Juilliard units.
yes,
And
we,
that's my husband's family's last name.
right. His 5 times great-grandfather, James Urquhart, that we don't know where he came from. We do know who he married. He married Genevieve Juillard back in 1786. So that's where the Juillard comes in.
Okay.
And her line is done way back. So we're able to go far back in her line. We even know that her father was a United Empire Loyalist.
Okay.
So our family line now is eligible for that designation. But we don't know about James Urquhart. Anything else? Yeah.
Talk about surprises. My DNA, and it's coming from both my mother and the father in there. This. Finding out that my mother's from Lancashire, England, and all of her family is over there. Now, coming to find out that my father's great-great-grandmother was from Lancashire. And I think there's been a little hanky-panky, like I said. I just can't seem to sort this out to find out where that connection is made.
Like sometimes you can't,
No,
because
no.
if a name, I mean, if James Urquhart's mother was married to an Urquhart, but got impregnated by another man, that child carries that name of Urquhart and has carried that name of Urquhart down through
Yeah.
300-400 years.
Yeah, well, I'm finding the Curtis and Taylors are mixing in with the Walkers, and just contacting people, and at first I think, oh, okay, you're related to the Curtises. So no, you're not, you're related to the Walkers. And
Just the thing is to get as many people as you can that are from those lines to
Mhm.
get tested. Like if you have a lot of money, you could pay for their tests. But
Okay,
I
so
don't
the
have that kind of money. I'm retired, so,
$699 one, right?
yeah, yeah. And to get as many tests as you can. Put them into Jetmatch, put them into MyHeritage, put them into wherever you can put them. Yes, Deborah.
I don't have a question, but with Ancestry DNA, I found an app that you can add to Ancestry DNA, and you can color code with little dots. So I can color code, this is my Butler side, this is my Leach side, this is my Wilkinson side, and you go by the colors. I did great-grandparents. And then when I find a match with all those different people, I put that colored dot beside it to remind me that that family comes from that part of the line.
I know that when you do your DNA with Ancestry, and if you do find a match, and if they're on your tree, there is some method of connecting the DNA match to
If
the
you
tree.
have your family tree on, I've got my full family tree on, and it is private at the moment because it's got living people on it. And if they put their family tree on, when I go to their name when I'm in the program, it automatically finds the connection and shows me right back to the original ancestor that we shared. So that's the advantage of
That's
having
neat,
a
yeah.
family tree on Ancestry, because they do it for you.
I
But
forgot
there's a
about that.
box you can hit, shared matches.
Yes.
Yes,
To find
and the
out.
shared matches just show you these people, you're looking at this other person's section. You hit shared matches, all of these people match in the same family, like you match that other person.
Right.
But what I'm talking about is it shows the direct ancestry of you and this person, your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents. Oh, you are related
We could
to
have a
them
whole
through that
session on
person.
what to do once you have your results.
Yeah.
Really, I mean,
Yeah.
I've got the same thing on mine. I've got a few cousins that are related to the land family and they come down and everything. But like you were saying earlier, a lot of my matches have got their trees are private or they have no tree.
right, a lot of them just do it for ethnicity. They're not really
Yeah.
genealogy people. They're not interested in family history. They just do it for the ethnicity, so they don't put a tree up there. I still send them a note
Yeah.
and ask them if they could look at my tree and
Mhm.
can they see something that
Or
could,
someone like us has asked them to do the test and they're not really interested. So unless their family tree is being run by that one moderator, that would be the person you contact and not them directly.
yeah, but you only can contact whoever they give you to contact.
That's right.
Yeah.
Dear husband, because we took our DNA test, just found out at the age of 64 that his father, not his father.
Did your father take the test as well?
I'm looking for my
They're all
dad.
dead.
They're gone, but,
So how do you know?
because his father was French, his supposed father, so he was supposed to be half French, half English, and DNA came back, he's 99% British. And I'm half French, and I had all this migration stuff, so he started looking, there was someone that showed up as a second cousin.
Like, do you have siblings that got tested?
My brother took the test,
And showed up as a half brother.
showed up with French.
So, good news,
Can't hear
the
you.
DNA, two other people that we talked to, and then last Saturday, we met with a potential.
They were just saying that her husband found out that the person he thought was his father was not his biological father through the DNA. And he had a brother take the DNA test and they showed up as half siblings. So DNA, it's pretty accurate when it comes to how many centimorgans. And if you share, I don't really look at anything below 70 centimorgans because it's just,
Because my DNA, the first time they brought it back.
I got the mother side, I don't have the father side.